let us explore the possibility and the liability of an emotional reset. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit, which begins, is it possible to achieve a heightened sensitivity to the world similar to the childhood experience? The individual then elaborates. I've noticed that when I meditate and am present, everything feels wonderful and kind of similar to the idea in this post. It's always incredibly short-lived for me, and I go right back to my mental fog after a certain point. But I was wondering, if I took meditation and the practice of staying present seriously, if I could achieve that presence that I used to have when I was young. For example, emotions were felt, I had more awe, my sensitivity was vivid, etc. Come, let us explore this, beginning with broad brushstrokes. I am not technically savvy. I have to rely on customer support a lot when it comes to my computer. And one of the things I've noticed is that not all updates are beneficial. There seems to be a function in Windows that allows you to reset to a previous update. And that's pretty cool. If I remember correctly, there was a movie, I think it was in the 90s, perhaps it was called City Slickers, maybe it was the late 80s. But a bunch of guys from the big city come to a dude ranch because they're all having midlife crises. And the conclusion, one individual confides to his friend that he's ruined his life. He works for his wife's dad. He had an affair with a coworker who's now pregnant. That's blown up his marriage and in turn got him fired. So now he has no place to live and no employment. And he has a wife or a partner and a baby to provide for in his mind. And he feels like he's at a loss. And the individual's friend said, well, it's like we were kids. It's time for a do-over. And truthfully, that was like a writing gimmick that really didn't change his life at all. It didn't get him out of the doghouse. But it was a wonderful plot device. And the character seemed to be relieved and seemed to be filled with a world of possibility, and the movie quickly ended after that. Many years ago, in the mid-'80s, when I was experimenting with religion the way some people experimented with drugs, I was experimenting with Christianity. And as I'd listened to Christian music radio stations, a common refrain I heard in songs was the wish to go back to first love, which is how people describe their honeymoon period when they first tune into any religion. And of course, neuroscience, chalks that up to the bonding hormones and stuff like that. And of course, the dopamine response to anything new. So there is a common human experience to wish to go back, to find an emotional reset. That, of course, reminds me of the old riddle, and you've probably heard this before. Why can't you step into the same stream twice? Because it's never the same stream twice. There are so many variables, and they are all in flux to one degree or another. Why can lightning strike the same place twice? Because it's never the same place twice. Lightning changes the environment in which it strikes. I'm not one of those stupid white boys who thinks that the only way they can study Tibetan Buddhism is to become Tibetan, or the only way they can study Theravadan Buddhism is to become Thai, or the only way to study Mahayana Buddhism is to become Japanese. But I'm still going to reference two items from the Japanese culture. Please bear with me. And of course, bear with my pronunciation. Most of us are already familiar with the idea of kintsugi pottery. When you take a broken bit of crockery and you mend it with a precious substance like gold. Is it as good as new? No. It's different. But that difference is not necessarily bad. Sometimes I'm asked, am I attracted to, barely legal women who are 19? No. I say a barely legal woman's 19. I just hope she eats her vegetables and does her homework and has a good life, But I don't want to date her. I want to date people who are closer to my own age by give or take 5 years. I find the mind experience, idealism is cute, but I really feel like a mind and a heart that have been around the block a time or two possess a certain type of wisdom and beauty that the prettiest 19-year-old will never know, at least until she's been around the block a time or two for many, many decades, or he, or they. Forgive me, I wish to be sensitive with my choice of language. It's a slow process for me. I want to do it, but there's plenty of room for improvement. I'm not going to tell you that you can think your way out of this. We cannot accept the changes wrought in our central nervous system by traumas innumerable. But I'll tell you how we make peace with it. Not through belief, not through aphorisms, not through deciding, but through process. We have very discrete mechanisms in our, I shouldn't use the word very, we have discrete mechanisms in our central nervous system that have evolved specifically to help us to deal with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. An additional artifact of Japanese culture that is very popular. I've even seen, tattoos of it. And if I don't like tattoos personally as a personal choice, I have far too many health problems to deal with an additional variable in this body. But In an alternate universe, if I ever got a tattoo, it would probably be the Enzo. The sloppy, horribly imperfect, incomplete circle, reminding us of perfect imperfection. What does that mean? As someone who is disabled, people with cluster B personality disorders are really, really drawn to me. It's very, very typical. They look for people that they can feel that they can easily take advantage of. And so those of us who have disabilities are like catnip to those with a cluster B personality disorder. And I was in a relationship with an individual like that, and I wanted to be that person's partner. That person wanted instead to compete with me and triumph over me in every area, which I had no use for. And I tried explaining to that person, we each have our own strengths. You are an expert in this field, and I'm an expert in this field, and we can both be each other's biggest fans. And the idea that I might know something in an unrelated field that she didn't know was so traumatic to her narcissistic sensibilities that her only response was a child's response of, "But you're not perfect." The goal of life is not to be perfect. The goal of meditation is not to be perfect. Enlightenment is not perfection, literally, maybe metaphorically, but not literally. All enlightenment is mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. That still means we experience the full spectrum of human perceptions and human emotions and human intentions and human thoughts and human memories and human fantasies. But we're really good at coping with them. That which might have driven us to suicide then might be deeply troubling now, but we're able to endure it just because we've gotten really good at mastering with a set of coping skills. Some of my favorite spiritual heroes, including the founder of Dzogchen, Prahe Vajra, also known as Garab Dorje, is famous for explaining that all emotions, pleasurable or painful, are not a hindrance. They're a help. They are the dynamo, which, just as a strong breeze turns the sails of a windmill, thus permitting the grinding of flour, similarly, the dynamism with which we experience perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings drives the mill of our practice of blending mindfulness and meditation with the two facets of our autonomic nervous system in harmony with our breath. In one of Captain Cook's famous voyages, sadly, of colonialization, his greatest peril came from the doldrums when there was no wind. You and I don't have to worry about that. We always have the metaphoric wind of something going on, that we're of a perception or an emotion or an intention or a thought or a memory or an imagining. The path of enlightenment is not paved with mind blanking. Enlightenment is not a blank mind. The turmoil of the mundane drives the dynamo of the enlightenment machine. There's a wonderful line in an Aerosmith song. Don't worry, I won't sing it. As I gaze in the mirror, all these lines in my face getting clearer. The past is gone. Good. I'm glad I'm no longer an infant soiling his nappies with no agency. I'm glad I'm no longer a 19-year-old, befuddled by disabilities I could not name, unable to make my way in the world, for those disabilities had high support requirements, and I had none. I'm glad that I'm 59, that I have diagnoses and an understanding of what's going on. It doesn't get rid of it, but it makes it so much more easy to cope with. For all the many flaws of living in 2024 America, there are so many wonderful advantages. We have computers in our pockets, and we're able to communicate with people around the world. As a meditation teacher, I'm able to use images and move things around the screen to help people master things in a week or a month that took me a very long time to master. This is such a wonderful time. I don't want to go back to the 90s or the 80s or the 70s or the 60s. There are so many wonderful things. And yes, I don't have the smooth face of an infant, but I don't have full nappies either. I don't have the innocence of an infant, but I also don't have the complete ignorance and lack of wherewithal. As a child, I kept having neurodivergent meltdowns in school. In elementary school and in junior high, I would cry during class. Do you know how tough it is in the turmoils of puberty, trying to find someone who'd want to kiss you when you are the guy losing control and crying in class? I'll tell you, it's a losing proposition. I'm so happy that now, 2024, I have a set of skills to cope with meltdowns and shutdowns that are common to my disabilities, and that I don't have to go through life apologizing for the harm I've done with my words or deeds, because I'm not doing those. I'm no longer a slave to those impulses, not because I'm better or worse, just because I've simply mastered a set of techniques. The cracks in the pottery are a place for the gold to go. Our imperfections drive the sails of the windmills of our enlightenment machine. I'm going to say something that might sound off-putting. Bear with me. Earth, as you know, as every adult knows, is a terrestrial planet. That means it's a rocky planet as opposed to a gaseous planet. Okay. During the parts of the dust of our proto-solar system coalesced into the sun, the remaining bits coalesced into the planets and their moons. Fabulous. Earth had no soil. It had water. In time, life forms developed into the water. In time, life forms were thrust onto land from wave action and stuff like that. And before they perished, they would go through metabolic processes. And we're talking about microbial entities. but they defecated. And those feces, that microbial feces, became soil. Every animal excretes feces. Feces at first are full of, there's a special word for it, pathogens. But time and temperature render the pathogens gone, and you're left with fertile, fresh, scentless, clean-smelling potting soil. Over a vast ocean of time, enough animals defecated to create enough soil on this planet for plants to grow, shrubs and trees and the like. No manure, no rose, so said the late Thich Nhat Hanh. No imperfections, no growth, no cracks, no gold. I'm not a pedophile. I'm attracted to adults, particularly those whose hearts and minds are beautiful to me. Of course, that's a redundant statement. Particularly those whose hearts and minds are intelligent and wise and creative and humorous and are prone to empathy. I think that's exquisite. An adult has greater wisdom and more mature empathy than an infant or a toddler or a tween does. That's just a fact of developmental neurology. So I've been threatening to share some neurology with you, so I might as well do that right now. Let us not make the mistake of confusing active concentration for mindfulness or active analysis for meditation. Although our prefrontal cortex is dandy, when it's overused, the amygdala gets stimulated, which is the seat of aggression and anxiety. Which components of our central nervous system are optimized for mindfulness and meditation? Well, let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system found in the central third or middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Let's turn our attention to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired by evolution to access the parasympathetic nervous system found in the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Why aren't we already enlightened, therefore, since we are in possession of these things? Simple. Our brain is as cluttered as the storage area or storage space of a hoarder. It's got so many things going on, it's a mess. But here's something ironic. When we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, this disorganized brain begins cooperating with our sympathetic nervous system. When we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, this exact same brain begins cooperating with our parasympathetic nervous system. It's just that easy. You can sit in meditation for 5 minutes at every 12 hours and notice results. There was a great yogi named Dzogchen Rinpoche who lived in the 1800s in Tibet. As a young idealist in his 20s, he went on retreat, and he thought that what he would do is every time he had a thought, he would take his hand overhead, snap his fingers while shouting the syllable, "Pay!" And he noticed that for a few seconds, that emotion or that thought would reset, but only for a few seconds. And after a short period of time, the emotions would return, or the sensations would return, or the perceptions would return, or the thoughts were to return. You get the idea. Everything is impermanent. The external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. Let us avoid the trap of the Buddha's foolish cousin, Devadatta. Let us avoid the trap of the psychotic chimpanzees. Let us, instead of relying on being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, instead let's follow in the footsteps of Devadatta's wise cousin Gautama. Let us follow in the footsteps of the chimpanzees' groovy cousins, the bonobos. Instead, let's be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Instead of trying to control our experience, let us traverse the path of being laid back with whatever life throws at us, with whatever circumstances throw at us, with whatever our bodies throw at us, with whatever our interactions with other sentient beings throws at us, with whatever our minds throw at us. Any fool can be happy when life is just blowjobs and beers. So the saying goes. What separates the fools, the wise from the fools, is the ability to have a modicum of peace when we don't get what we want, when we want, for as long as we want. The Buddha was not a master of manifesting. He was born into wealth, power, and privilege. He lived every junior high school kid's fevered fantasy. But he found that in merely going through life, indulging the drives of his dopamine-oriented reward system was unfulfilling. For the dopamine-oriented reward system is not designed for fulfillment. It's designed to keep us ever restless, ever debauching, ever copulating, far in a field, because that's what our genes want. Good for the gene pool, bad for the person. We have an additional reward system. It's oxytocin oriented, and instead of rewarding with pleasure, it rewards with fulfillment. It rewards cooperation with fulfillment. The Buddha found, before the Buddha was the Buddha, when he was just Prince Siddhartha, he found that Our primal drives of shoving, hating, clinging, also known as the 6 F's, that upon encountering any new information, ask, hey, that thing over there, that individual over there, should I fuck them? Should I feed on them? Should I fight them? Should I flee before them? Should I faint before them? Should I fawn over them? That's not a fulfilling way to live. The liberation the Buddha offers us is not liberation from the presence of our survival drives, but from their tyranny, relegating them back to the role of tool as opposed to tyrant. The method the Buddha taught to accomplish this was the Eightfold Path. Enlightenment is nothing more than mastery of the path. How do we know when we've mastered anything, like tying our shoes or brushing our teeth or using the toilet? When we're able to do it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Beware of teachers who tell you it's going to take multiple lifetimes to become a Buddha. Because in the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, we are taught the difference. We're taught that we can master the Buddha's path in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. The Buddha's path is supposed to be pleasurable. It's supposed to be peaceful, not one of striving. The only effort we need is the effortless effort that is a natural byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. The effortless effort of going with the flow. We can do this deal. We can meditate 5 minutes every 12 hours the first week. And if we're meditating in a sustainable way, in a pleasurable way, we'll find ourselves meditating 10 minutes every 12 hours the second week. And so forth, and so forth, and so forth. We can do this deal. We can, in the now, we can perceive so many things, including memories, including fantasies, including both satisfaction, dissatisfaction, enthusiasm, and indifference. We can experience the totality of human foibles in a way that lets the gold in. I do look forward to practicing with you together as a team after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering each technique of each meditation school, so that you wouldn't have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which, although is gratis, is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I think it could be great fun if, together as a team, we played with the latest iteration of the spaciousness of Diamond Mind, composed oh so many centuries ago by Prahe Vajra, translated recently by Yeshe Dundan, adapted and amplified by this MOOC. Please chant with me. Listen, O virtuous one, I will show you the truth of your being. You are and always have been like Vajrasattva, the infinite consciousness, living presence, and creative power of the divine. The vast spaciousness of being, always good, the way of liberation for all beings, beyond appearance and disappearance, and beyond the grasp of the intellect. In this path, seen through the lens of Buddha nature, we do not berate ourselves, labeling ourselves as sinners, but as those already equipped with the facets of our Buddha nature. We have a sympathetic nervous system, so we can practice mindfulness. We have a parasympathetic nervous system, so we can practice meditation. We have an anterior cingulate gyrus, so we can practice empathy. This is our Buddha nature. We already have the equipment we need to be a Buddha. We already have the neurology we need to be a Buddha. All we have to do is use these mechanisms in the most optimal way, and we can do that in as little as a week. You are and always have been like Vajrasattva. Well, how are we like this archetype of enlightenment? In two ways. The first way is because of our sympathetic nervous system, we are capable of mindfulness. We're capable of perceiving vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. We are capable of noticing perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We're capable of noticing the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. We are the creative power of the divine. What does that mean? It means that our eyes are always seeing, our ears are always hearing, our flesh is always feeling, our mouth is always tasting, our nose is always smelling. It means that our mind is always... So this is not a bad thing, it's a good thing, it's energy, and this energy drives our perception and release and empathy and makes us the Buddhas we were born to be. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. What do we mean by the divine? In Tantric Buddhism, they use the term divine differently than they do in Hinduism. In Buddhism, they use it this way, as a metaphor. The Buddha was fond of teaching the four bases of mindfulness: the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental. And we see this reflected in terms of tantric art, wherein the our circumstance, wherein as we relax into our exhalation, whatever circumstance we notice during our inhalation could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise or pure land or vati comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever body we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a Buddha's real or imagined yadam or archetype comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of the interpersonal we might have perceived during our inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as the real or imagined mantra of a Buddha comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever perception, emotion, intention, thought, memory, or imagining we might have experienced during our inhalation could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a Buddha's mind, symbolized by a one-syllable mantra comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, we're able to rely upon our parasympathetic nervous system to physically relax and mentally release, thus feeling less compressed and more expansive. And this is a good thing. Being able to perceive whatever comes our way is a good thing. Being able to process and release and relax is a good thing. Hence the name of this real or imagined Buddha couple is the All Good Ones. Our ability to notice and release is inherent to our central nervous system, regardless of what appears, regardless of what disappears, regardless of our puny attempts to understand, no less control it. As silently, mentally, and passively we recite the demonstrative pronoun. So the easiest way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation. The most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation. Let us count 12 rounds on 4 fingers and 1 thumb, assuming a round is simply one inhalation followed by one exhalation. During each inhalation, we can advance the tip of our right thumb over the various creases of our 4 fingers for a total of 12. Please practice along with me, starting with your index finger. Just as we can count 12 rounds upon the creases of our right hand, on our left hand we can count 12 sets of 12 rounds. Our first set of 12 rounds, our second set of 12 rounds. 12 sets of 12 rounds gives us 144 rounds. If we wish to meditate for the better part of an hour, it's going to take multiple sessions or multiple collections of 144 rounds. How do we keep track of that? On our knuckles. You can take your left index finger and trace the back of your right index finger and find the great knuckle. You can then rest your hands thusly in your lap And on the first knuckle, perform the first collection of 144 rounds. Time marches on relentlessly, and let's move forward. Oh yes, here we go. Love being our essence, attainment is already complete. There is no need to strive and practicing great compassion. Love being the supreme good, there is no need either to extol the many splendid qualities of compassion. Oh, nice, look at that. So, we do not need to beseech the real or imagined archetype of enlightened compassion. We do not need to bow to him or her or make offerings or recite his or her mantra till we are hoarse of speech. We are already wired for empathy. And the more we practice mindfulness and the more we practice meditation, the more we will pacify, calm down, and soothe our anxious and aggressive amygdala, and the more we will stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, this thing that looks like a catcher's mitt and functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy and compassion and love. We don't have to force it. It's a byproduct. We're already wired to notice when we breathe in. We're already wired to relax as we breathe out. Once we stop fighting that, and we allow that natural process of our autonomic nervous system to occur, our empathy will rival that of the great compassionate one. An additional fringe benefit, an additional fringe benefit of the practice is this. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds could flow in the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. Thus, making our choices, utterances, and deeds as dynamic as the archetype of enlightened action. Since we have come to our second meditation, let's take note of that by using the tip of our left middle finger to trace the rear of our right middle finger until it comes to the great knuckle at the base of the right middle finger, and allow that knuckle to rest upon allow the knuckle of our right middle finger to rest upon the tip of our left middle finger in our laps. As we count several sets of 12 rounds. Please chant with me. Phenomena are not other than the true condition. Without input on our part, they appear and disappear. Naturally arising wisdom need not be actively sought. Self-liberating by nature, it reveals the way. Whatever phenomena we experience, so as we relax into our exhalation, whatever phenomena we experience during our inhalation, begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite outer sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. We do not have to actively manifest things in our life. They just appear by themselves. We do not have to actively dispel things in our life. They go by themselves. Regardless of how much we try to prevent things from appearing, they appear. Regardless of how much we try to hold on to things, they disappear. Indulging our controlling tendencies is folly. It is a waste of what time and what energy we do have. It indulges our chimpanzee nature to be rigid, controlling, elitist, superstitious, cryptic, elitist, competitive, and cruel. Better it is to indulge our bonobo nature and instead be flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. We don't have to actively seek the wisdom of letting go. It's already wired into our every exhalation. All we need to do is align our intention with the wiring of our parasympathetic nervous system. It's sadly ironic that the fundamental text of Dzogchen, is now considered a restricted text by those whose entire careers are built upon contradicting it. Let us mark this, our third set of mindfulness and meditation, by using the tip of our left ring finger to trace the back of our right ring finger until we come to the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger. Let us set our hands in our lap in the manner that the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger rests upon the tip of our left ring finger, as we count multiple sets of 12 rounds. Now, if you've just joined, here's how it works. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation. And the most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation. we can count 12 rounds, assuming a round is one inhalation followed by one exhalation. During each in-breath, we can advance the tip of our right thumb thusly, beginning with our index finger. Remember, it's most ergonomically sound to rest both your hands in your lap. It's convenient to do so in a manner that subtly stimulates the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger. And upon our left hand, we can count sets of 12 rounds, beginning with our index finger. won't you please chant with me? Earth, air, fire, and water, the indwelling divine. Despite our mistaken notion, liberation dawns from within our own being. And is not dependent on others. In Tantra, in the Mahayana and the Tantrayana, we speak of 5 elements. In the Theravada, we speak of 4 elements, and that's most likely cultural. In the beginning of this Shastra, we speak of 4 elements. Towards the end, we speak of 5, which to me represents or infers a reconciliation of all schools of Buddhism. What do we mean by divine? Simply this. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever solidity we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever air we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever warmth we might have noticed during the previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever moisture we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. We are going to make a good many errors. Sometimes we will confuse a coiled rope for a snake. Sometimes we will confuse the permanent for the temporary, or the other way around. Sometimes we will confuse the interdependent for the separate. It's not our job to control what we think. It's our job to notice what we think, warts and all, as we breathe in, and relax as best we can as we breathe out. So this is going to be super controversial. going to add an image here just to really drive home the point. Please bear with me. Let's tap pictures. Buddhist yoga. Let's scroll down to training. Let's scroll down to Padmasambhava. Let's open that bad boy up and look for Yabiyum. Let's look for my favorite one. Here it is. Let's hit wrap text and let's click behind text. Let's do the old scroll-a-rooney. Here we go. A little bit more. All right. Our ability to notice and release is based upon the functionality of our autonomic nervous system. It is not based upon blessings, real or imagined blessings from a real or imagined teacher. We are not enlightened because a teacher has given us an empowerment. We are not enlightened because a teacher recognizes that we are enlightened. I'm reminded of a wonderful scene from the first Matrix movie. Being the one is a lot like being in love. No one can tell you you're in love. You just know balls to bone. When have we mastered the Eightfold Path? When we are so comfortable in our own skin that we no longer ask ourselves whether or not we have accomplished the Eightfold Path. We were so busy spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively applying the Eightfold Path that we forget to ponder our identity. Regardless of what others think of us. Water is what, despite what people think. Arsenic is poisonous, despite what people think. Lead is poisonous, whether or not people say it is. Radium is poisonous, whether or not people say it is. Reality is not voted on by a consensus. The universe is under no obligation to make sense to us. Let's meditate. Having come to our fourth and final meditation practice of this session, let us keep track by using the tip of our left little finger to trace the back of our oopsie. Let us use the tip of our left little finger to trace the back of our right little finger till we come to the great knuckle at its base. As we fold our hands in our lap, let us rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger upon the tip of our left little finger. Not only will this help us keep track that we are on the fourth set of meditation, but it will help to coalesce our energies, real or imagined subtle energies in our lower abdomen, in the region known romantically as the secret wheel. If you feel that oopsie, wrong button. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 hours or so, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.